Buckle up, folks, because today we're diving into a life story that's so wild it sounds like it's straight out of a spy novel. But hold on tight, because this one is actually true.
Oh, yeah. This one is definitely a wild ride.
We're talking about Marita Lorenz, a woman who was connected to dictators, got wrapped up in international espionage, and even claimed to have a part in one of America's biggest mysteries, the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
To sort out fact from fiction, we're using a whole bunch of sources like biographies, film summaries, and even personal accounts.
That sounds like quite the mix.
It is. So are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's unravel this enigma.
All right, so first things first. Marita Lorenz's life was anything but ordinary right from the very start.
Yeah. From what I've read, it's quite a story.
Born in Germany in 1939, daughter of a U-boat captain and an American actress, she lived through World War II firsthand. She even spent time in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp as a child.
It's hard to imagine the impact that kind of upbringing would have.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder how experiencing such a tumultuous childhood shaped her worldview and influenced the choices she made later in life.
Right, because it's not your typical childhood by any means. It's almost like a foundation for understanding why she might be drawn to powerful and often, dangerous men.
It's as if she was almost drawn to the eye of the storm.
Exactly.
And that brings us to 1959, Cuba, right after the revolution.
Ah, yes. A pivotal moment in history.
A 19-year-old Marita meets Fidel Castro, the revolutionary leader, and, well, let's just say sparks flew.
This is where things really start to heat up.
Oh, yeah, to put it mildly.
Castro at that time was such a powerful figure. He embodied the change that was sweeping through Cuba. He was charismatic, controversial. He commanded global attention. So you can imagine how a young woman like Marita would be swept up in all of that.
She became Castro's mistress, lived with him in Havana, and things moved pretty fast.
And it wasn't just a fleeting romance.
Nope, she got pregnant. But the pregnancy ended under some pretty mysterious circumstances.
I read about that. It's quite a shadowy part of the story.
Marita later claims she was drugged and forced to have an abortion.
It really makes you think about the power dynamics at play if that's true. Was it a case of Castro just being used to getting his own way? Or were there other political motives we just don't know about? It's pretty chilling to think about.
Definitely, it's a dark side to what initially seemed like this passionate love story. But then things took an even stranger turn.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Marita gets approached by the CIA.
Now, that's a plot twist you don't see coming.
They wanted to use her connection to Castro to assassinate him. They even gave her poison pills.
It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie.
Exactly. It really highlights the intense climate of the Cold War, the lengths the U.S. was willing to go to combat communism right in their backyard. But also, it brings up some serious ethical questions about how intelligence agencies operate, how they identify and exploit weaknesses, sometimes even blurring the lines of morality. It makes you wonder what was going through Marita's mind. Imagine the pressure she must have been under, torn between her feelings for Castro and the demands of this powerful organization, the CIA. But just when you think you've heard it all, her story takes another turn.
You've got to be kidding me, another twist.
She claims she actually warned Castro about the assassination plot, told him she loved him.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It really is. Was she betraying the CIA, making this brave stand against this powerful institution, or was it something more calculated, a way to protect herself and play both sides?
It's that ambiguity that makes Marita such a captivating and complex character. You can't quite figure her out.
So here we have Marita, a young woman thrust onto the world stage, entangled with one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century, caught in a web of international espionage.
And this is just the beginning.
Oh, we're just getting started, folks. Her story doesn't end with Castro. You could say her time with him was just the warm-up act for even more mind-blowing chapters.
I can't wait to hear what comes next.
Me neither, but we'll have to save those for the next part of our deep dive. So Marita Lorenz definitely had a way of finding herself in these crazy situations.
Yeah, she did.
But after all the drama with Castro, her story moves beyond Cuba and into a whole new level of intrigue.
It does. It takes another really fascinating turn, leading her to another powerful but controversial figure, Marcos Pérez Jiménez.
Here we go again. Another dictator.
Right.
Pérez Jiménez was living in exile in Florida at the time.
Yeah, that's right. He was ousted from power in Venezuela back in 1958 and had to seek refuge in the U.S. He's a complicated guy. During his rule, Venezuela's economy grew, but there was a lot of political repression.
And that's where Marita comes into the picture again. She claimed that Pérez Jiménez fathered her daughter Monica. It's almost like she went from one polarizing figure to another, each one leaving this lasting impact on her life.
It's true, and I think this connection with Perez Jimenez reveals a pattern in Marita's life, this recurring theme of her being drawn to these powerful and often authoritarian men. It makes you wonder, was it their power that attracted her, or was there something more, maybe a need for protection or validation?
It's a good question, something to think about. But things get even more complicated. Marita later marries an FBI agent, and they get involved in, get this, spying on UN diplomats in New York City. So she wasn't just linked to dictators, she also got caught up in American intelligence
I
operations.
know, it's crazy, right? This part of her life really shows the paranoia of the Cold War. The FBI was so focused on finding communists, and Marita, with her past connection to Castro, was seen as a valuable asset in their surveillance activities. Makes you wonder, was she really committed to this new role, or was she using it to her advantage?
It's amazing how her life crossed paths with all these major historical events. And just when you think her story can't get any wilder, she makes some explosive claims about one of the most infamous events in American history, the JFK assassination.
This is probably the most controversial part of Marita Lorenz's story. She actually testified that she was involved in a plot to kill President Kennedy. And even though there's no real evidence to back it up, her account has fascinated conspiracy theorists for years.
It's like something straight out of a spy movie. She claimed she traveled to Dallas with Lee Harvey Oswald and some other anti-Castro Cubans just days before Kennedy was shot.
Wow.
She even named Frank Sturgis, remember him from the Watergate scandal, as part of the plot.
Oh, yeah.
And she didn't stop there. She also pointed fingers at E. Howard Hunt, another guy connected to Watergate. If what she's saying is true, it would mean the Kennedy assassination was linked to this huge conspiracy involving anti-Castro Cubans and people within the U.S. government.
It's hard to wrap your head around it.
It really is. But even with no solid proof, Marita's claims make you wonder. Were her allegations just made up a way to get attention, or maybe even revenge against people she felt had wronged her? Or was she a pawn in some bigger, more sinister game one she was only starting to understand?
Those are the questions that keep people guessing and fascinated. Even in its most unbelievable moments, Marita's story reflects how complex and uncertain the Cold War was. It was a time when alliances were shifting, truths were hidden, and people like Marita Lorenz got caught in the middle of their lives, forever marked by secrets and intrigue.
When you step back and think about it, it's incredible just how many different things Marita Lorenz experienced in her life.
I know, right?
From the horrors of World War II to the revolution in Cuba, from the world of spies and secrets to being right in the middle of major political scandals, it's like she lived multiple lives. And each one is more unbelievable than the last.
And what really strikes me is how her story intersects with some of the most important events of the 20th century. It's not like she was just watching history unfold. She was actually part of it, shaping events in ways we might never fully understand.
Makes you think, what was it like for her to navigate all that danger, constantly surrounded by these powerful figures, all with their own hidden motives? Was she some kind of master manipulator using her charm and connections to get what she wanted? Or was she more like a pawn being used by forces beyond her control?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And I think that gets to the heart of the mystery of Marita Lorenz. She left behind these clues, but we may never have the complete picture. Some parts of her story we can check against historical records or what other people have said, but a lot of it is still shrouded in mystery.
And that's what makes her story so gripping. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces. A story that makes you want to dig through the evidence, consider all the possibilities, and come to your own conclusions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why her story still resonates with people today. It forces us to think critically about history, to question the official versions of events, and to accept that truth is often a matter for perspective.
Her life has inspired so many books and films, blurring the lines between what's real and what's made up. She's been portrayed as a femme fatale, a skilled spy, a woman heartbroken by love and a victim of circumstance. But maybe the most intriguing part of her legacy is the mystery that surrounds her.
And I think that's where her real significance lies. She reminds us that history isn't just a bunch of facts all neatly arranged. It's more like a messy tapestry woven with both brilliance and deceit, moments of clarity, mixed with periods of intense uncertainty.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Marita Lorenz, we're left with more questions than answers. Was she a clever manipulator or a victim of circumstance? Or maybe a complicated mix of both? How much of her story is the truth, and how much is a carefully crafted act?
Those are questions we may never have definitive answers to, but maybe that's the whole point. Marita Lorenz's life doesn't fit into neat categories or simple explanations. It was a life lived on the edge, a life that broke the rules and challenged how we see truth and reality. And in the end, isn't that what makes her story so unforgettable?
It definitely gives us all a lot to think about. The life of Marita Lorenz was a whirlwind of adventure, intrigue, and unanswered questions. A reminder that sometimes the most amazing stories are the ones that blur the lines between fact and fiction, leaving us to ponder the mysteries hidden beneath the surface. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.